Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. I have a couple of sweet interactive cards featuring a new die set by Spellbinders, Colour Block Cloudscape. This set comes with 3 dies that produce different cloud profiles. They are also in different lengths, so they're suitable for any size of card. I've coupled this with one of their more recent small dies of the month, Floating Bunny. I love interactive cards. I really admire some of the complex mechanisms I've seen people put together, but for me, I like it simple, so this is perfect. I began by putting together the bunnies for each of the cards, one on a swing and the other holding a bunch of balloons. The tall die that is sitting right above my paper towel produces the swing and also the strings for the balloons. Before I attach the swing seat, I'm just giving it a little bit of color with some gray Distress Oxide ink. And just a little dot of glue on either side of the seat, and then I can lay the strings on top and let it dry. And I just make sure that the top of the 2 strings are not too close together. When the swing is dry, it is going to be attached to this die cut that looks like a tab. This piece, along with the little circle die cut, is going to form the mechanism that allows the swing to move. There are 3 dies to put the bunny together. 2 of the dies produce multiple cuts. The die that produces the 3 die cuts are the inside of the ears and the tummy detail. And I'm adding just a little bit of pink ink before I pop them out along with the 2 ears. When dealing with lots of tiny die cuts, I like to put it together as I go, so before I take any of the other die cuts out, I'm going to put the detail on the ears. For the detail on the bunny's tummy, I'm just going to add a little bit of gray ink around the edges of it. A couple of small dots of glue are added to the base of the ears and they're attached to the head. The die set for the bunny comes with 2 sets of arms. I'm using the set where the hand is folded into a clasp. There's a tiny little cut that can be slipped into the string and it looks like the bunny's holding on. And I just bend that little die cut open so that it's easier to slip the string into it. The bunny's tail is attached and I add a little bit of black cardstock to the back of the bunny's head to give some detail to the eyes and nose. After the head is popped onto the body, the bunny will be ready to adhere to the swing. But first I position the paws around the rope and then the bunny's feet are adhered to the swing seat. I give the glue just a few seconds to dry before I slip one of the arms down the string into position. A dot of glue is added to the end of the arm and then I go ahead to the second arm and slip that one into position as well. Once the second arm is adhered, the bunny is ready to be added to the card. Please bear with me, the next 3 minutes of video is a little bit fuzzy. I'm just struggling with some new equipment right now. The second bunny is out of ivory cardstock and I've just used a little bit of gray ink to edge him. I'm using just one of the clasping arms for this bunny and the other one is regular. I've die cut 3 strings and I glued them together first, crossing over each other, and then inserted that into the clasping hand. To create a stable piece, I overlapped the balloons when I attached them to the string and adhered them to one another. To create the foreground for these cards, I'm using one of the dies from Spellbinders Universal Curved Border. This slimline die is perfect for creating 2 overlapping borders for one card, and then for the second card I just used one piece. The color was quickly applied using a blending brush and Simon Says Stamp's Positively Saturated inks. As the green is applied, I just do some very simple masking using Post-it note tape. And then when the green is done, I just go in and add some color to the flowers. This die set also comes with some single flower and leaves, which were also inked up. The card with the balloons has a double floral border and the colors are richer with blues and roses. The other card has a single border done in soft pastel shades of peach and pink. Working on a panel of Bristol smooth cardstock that measures 8.5 inches by 3.5 inches, I apply pink and a soft blue for the background for one card. The other card starts off with a soft blue and works upwards towards yellow. For each card, I've die cut 4 different cloud profiles on Bristol smooth cardstock. For the card with the balloons, I'm edging the clouds in a little bit of soft blue and pink, whereas the other card is just inked up with a little bit of blue. I start off by putting 2 of the cloud layers together, and then I'm going to trim it down to the same width as the panel, 3.5 inches. For the next 2 layers, I add them on one at a time, trimming it down to the 3.5 inch width after each addition. Working with the cardstock a little bit wider gives me some flexibility in placement of those cloud profiles that are the same so that they look more natural. I lay everything out before I trim down the height of my cloud panel. And I'm ready to start putting these cards together, and I'm at the end of my fuzzy clips. For this card, to create the movement of the bunny hanging from the balloons, the mechanism will be on top of the cloud, so the cloud panel is adhered directly to the card front. For the other card, the mechanism will be underneath the clouds, so the cloud panel is attached with foam tape around the 2 sides and the top of the panel. For this card, I'm adhering 2 of the floral foregrounds. For the other card, I'll just have 1. So for this card, I adhere the first one, trim off the excess, and then add in the second one. The second floral border is a little bit shorter than the first one in height, and it was adhered with foam tape. After the edges of the foreground are trimmed down, then the card front is adhered to a black cardstock panel that will measure the same as the card base, 8 3/4 inches by 3 3/4 inches. The edges of the clouds will have a little bit of glimmer and shine with the addition of Nuvo Glitter Drops White Blizzard. For this card, the Nuvo drops are applied first because the movement mechanism will be sitting on top of the clouds. For the other card, where the movement piece is underneath the clouds, the Nuvo drops are a finishing touch to the card. After a thin stream of the Nuvo drops have been applied to the edge of the clouds, I use a brush to pull it out slightly and flatten it. Because the Nuvo drops do not have a lot of dimension, they dry quickly. And while they are drying, I add in some of those single flower die cuts and leaves to the foreground. The centers of the flowers are finished off with yellow confetti, and of course I have to add in just a few more in different colors in and around the flowers. The bunny is actually sitting on the card with its movement mechanism, but I ended up taking it off. I added Nuvo glaze to the balloons to make them nice and shiny. The addition of that little bit of weight actually made a difference, and so I had to take it off and make some modifications. And so here's the other thing about Nuvo glaze. It's quite liquidy, and it needs to be on a completely flat surface so that it won't shift to one side of what you are glazing. So I've pulled out all my small scissors and I'm propping it up so that it's completely level. Okay, let's make that bunny swing. The first thing that needs to be done is a little bit of foam needs to be added to either end of that movement hinge. The Darice thin strips are a perfect fit. The hinge is going to be adhered to the panel, so I make sure that I've got it in the right position. The little die cut circle is set down on the panel and the hinge is adhered over top of it. You do have to make sure that the foam that you've placed on the hinge is not too long because you don't want it catching that circle. It has to be free moving. Next, I attach the foam square to the circle through the hinge opening. Small foam squares are a perfect fit. I found that it helped to get everything swinging more freely by adding in a second foam square. To keep this element completely level, I added in double foam squares to the body of the bunny and also to the 2 outside balloons. After the backing paper was removed, I just put in a little strip of cardstock. Because I had taken the element off a couple of times, I ended up having to use a drop of glue on the foam square in the middle of the movement mechanism. But the modifications worked and that bunny was swinging. The sentiments from Spellbinders layered mix and match sentiments were die cut from both cardstock and foam. To get these sentiments perfectly aligned, I leave the foam die cut in its backing. The foam die cut leaves an impression, making it very easy to align the cardstock one to it. I leave it to dry completely before I remove the excess foam. After several minutes, a craft pick is a good tool to help release that sentiment from the excess foam. And then I'm ready to adhere my sentiment. And this is quite a fine sentiment and I don't want glue smeared on my panel, so I dab it off. Yeah, on my hand. I do so many things without even thinking. Honestly, when I look at the video, I go, really? And yes, I do have to balance out the confetti at the bottom of the card by placing more confetti at the top. But as I place them, I am taking into account that I am going to add Nouveau drops to it, and I swing the bunny back and forth to make sure nothing's going to be knocked off. Oh, I ruined the surprise. Yes, here it comes. Nouveau Crystal Drops Morning Dew on all of the confetti. And on one of the bunnies, the one that didn't have the strings in the way, I added Nouveau Glitter Drops White Blizzard to the pinks of the ears. And that completes these sweet little interactive slimline cards featuring Spellbinders' new die set, Colour Block Cloudscape. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making these cards, and as always, I appreciate your visit.